All right. Hello, folks. This is a quick briefer on how I make sourdough. It may not be how everyone makes it, but I thought it would be helpful, especially if you got the starter from me, to know how my particular starter acts. So you'll probably notice that you had an overflow of sourdough. That's good. That means that your culture is very active. Usually what I'll do with this is I'll rinse this out and I'll keep it for the water that I add back to my sourdough starter or for making more sourdough. So the first thing we do, and you're gonna get messy. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is open our sourdough starter. And it looks like a lot of this one overflowed, so I'm also gonna add what's in the bottom of my cup. And then I'll rinse this cup and use it for the water I add later. You had about half of what you have in here. You could actually bring it down to like maybe a quarter cup in the bottom of this, because all you really need is that active culture in there to get the bread to rise and to reactivate the new flour and cream. This is about what I left in mine. I'm gonna pour this in, and I'm gonna have the hubs rinse these with hot water for me so that I could add them in. Now I'm doing a double batch here. Normally you would just do a single jar, but I'm baking up a big batch today. One jar usually makes about 2 loaves, or say 12 rolls. That's about average. So my butter knife has proven to be my best friend during mixing, because it's very easy to clean. It's easy to get in and out of the jars to mix everything. The recipe does have a specific amount that you use in here, but I tend to just go so that my jar is 3/4 of the way full, and the liquid inside the jar is kind of like an unset pudding. I stir it up. See, right now it's still a little thick. I'm using that stuff we rinsed out of the bottom of the thing because it already has active cultures in it. Why waste it? And I'm actually going to leave this sourdough a little bit lower than I did the last time because I had a lot of overflow. So I don't want to make a mess every single time. So this is about the consistency, maybe a little bit looser than you're looking for, but there's usually always more flour stuck to the sides that'll soak in. And again, it's just getting the culture to be alive in there. See what I mean about the butter knife? Cleans up nice. And then I put the lid back on. You want to put it on loosely though, because this is going to expel gases, and that's what actually drives the sourdough starter over the sides of the jar. I've often thought maybe, so if I'm going to shake it to get it to mix better, I just do one counterclockwise turn in that direction to get it to the right looseness. Otherwise that lid blows up, you know, it bows over and it's hard to get it open again. To this liquid that came from your starter in the hooch, to your hooch, you are going to add 2 cups of flour, or 1 cup of flour. I'm doubling my recipe, sorry about that. 1 cup of flour and 1 cup of warm water. Okay, now I am a rather lazy baker here. I used to do all my kneading by hand, and then I realized, why don't I just use my KitchenAid? It has a dough hook, makes my life easier. I always start out slow, and then I scrape down the sides as we go along because it doesn't always get everything. So I just use, you know, a little spongy or whatever you have around. A chopstick will work too if you have a nice long chopstick, just to push this and make sure that it's getting mixed all together. When this mixture is pretty well incorporated, what you're going to do is you're going to place plastic wrap or a warm damp towel on top of it. Put it in a place that's kind of warm, maybe on top of a radiator. Definitely with the dish under it though, just in case you have a really active culture. And let it sit overnight. You don't have to let it sit fully overnight. Like, this culture is very active, and I could already see that it's rather bubbly. So I wouldn't worry too much. Maybe an hour or two at most. This is something nice to do when you're doing laundry or something like that, because you can come back to it if you set the timer. All right. So that is about where I would mix this batch to. It's a little bit flowy. It's a little bit lumpy, but you're just getting that culture to distribute itself throughout what you mixed in.